Hey everyone, and welcome back. It's been 1,000 days since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began.
A grim milestone.
Yeah, and things have gotten even more complicated recently with some pretty major developments.
Definitely major. We're talking North Korean troops entering the fight on Russia's side and Ukraine launching its first attack using those U.S.-supplied ATACMS missiles.
Right, like we've got news reports, analyses, military perspectives all saying this could be a turning point, so let's dive in.
Absolutely. Let's.
All right, first up, those North Korean troops. The Pentagon reports indicate Russia's brought in about 10,000 of them.
Yeah, about 10,000.
What's the thinking there? Why is Russia turning to North Korea for military support at this stage?
Well, I think it really shows how much pressure Russia's under after 1,000 days of war. They've taken heavy losses and they need manpower.
Makes sense.
Ugh.
But 10,000 troops from North Korea? I mean, is that really going to move the needle against Ukraine?
That's the big question, right? North Korea's military capabilities aren't exactly top tier.
Meaning their equipment and training might not be up to par.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And there are already reports of North Korean soldiers deserting near the Ukrainian border, possibly due to low morale or the harsh conditions.
So maybe not the battle-hardened reinforcements Putin was hoping for.
Right. It seems that way.
But even beyond the actual fighting ability of those troops, this whole situation with North Korea has huge geopolitical implications.
Absolutely. It strengthens the Russia-North Korea alliance, which is already raising eyebrows in Northeast Asia.
Yeah, it's making a lot of people nervous.
And then there's the potential ripple effect on U.S.-China relations, which are already pretty strained.
For sure. This just adds another layer of complexity to an already delicate situation.
It's like a domino effect. Each move could trigger a whole cascade of consequences.
I mean, what's going through China's mind right now? They're seeing two countries both kind of at odds with the U.S. strengthening their ties.
Right. And then you have to consider the potential impact on the Korean peninsula itself. Could this lead to more tension between North and South Korea?
Definitely something to watch. And speaking of shaking things up, that brings us to Ukraine's first attack, using those U.S.-made ATACMS missiles.
Yeah, November 19th, they hit an ammunition depot in Russia's Bryansk region.
Right, that was a big one. So for people who don't know, can you break down what ATACMS actually are?
Sure. So we're talking long-range ballistic missiles capable of hitting targets much deeper inside Russia than anything Ukraine had before.
Right, and those ATACMS have been a point of contention. The U.S. was hesitant to give them to Ukraine, worried about escalating the conflict.
Yeah, worried about provoking Russia.
So what changed? Why the shift in policy?
It seems the U.S. is becoming more willing to give Ukraine the firepower it needs to directly target key Russian military assets, even if those assets are inside Russia.
So this attack was more than just symbolic.
Oh, yeah. This ammunition depot in Bryansk, it supplied Russian forces in those contested areas like Kursk.
So taking it out disrupts their supply lines.
Exactly. Ukraine demonstrated some serious offensive capabilities with this attack capabilities that could really hinder Russia's ability to keep up the fight.
But of course, Russia isn't just going to sit back and take it. We've heard some pretty strong warnings, especially about the potential use of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, Putin's response to those ATACMS strikes has been especially concerning. He's basically lowered the threshold for using nuclear weapons, suggesting that Russia might consider them if they're attacked with American-supplied weaponry.
Wow, that's a whole other level of serious.
It definitely raises the stakes.
Yeah,
And it feels like we've entered a much more dangerous phase of this conflict.
no doubt.
Yeah.
And then there's the wild card of the incoming Trump administration.
Right, that adds a whole other layer of unpredictability to an already volatile situation.
Yeah, during the campaign, Trump said he wanted to end the conflict quickly. Even said he could get a peace deal done in 24 hours.
24 hours? Wow. That's quite a claim.
Right. He's also hinted at cutting back military aid to Ukraine and pushing for some kind of negotiated settlement.
Possibly even one that's favorable to Russia.
Yeah, that's the concern.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people see this as a fight for democracy against authoritarianism. Would it be right to pressure Ukraine into accepting a peace deal that lets them keep some of the territory they've taken? What message would that send to other countries facing similar threats?
Exactly. And it's not just about the message, it's about how Russia and North Korea might react to a Trump presidency. They could see it as a chance to solidify their gains and push even harder, knowing that U.S. support for Ukraine might weaken.
It's a risky move for sure. Emboldening Russia and North Korea could have some serious consequences for global security. Like we could see a real shift in the balance of power, with authoritarian regimes feeling more confident to act aggressively.
Absolutely. It really highlights how important the international community's response is. We've heard a lot of concern from different countries, but will that translate into action? It's a question that's going to define the next few months.
We've been talking a lot about the geopolitical side of things, but it's easy to forget about the human cost of this war. It's not just about strategic analysis. It's about the thousands of soldiers and civilians who've already died. And these latest developments make even more suffering more likely.
Absolutely. The psychological toll on the Ukrainian people is enormous. The constant threat of bombings, millions of people displaced, families torn apart. These are wounds that take years to heal. And that's not even considering the possibility of the conflict escalating into something even more catastrophic.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, the nuclear threats from Russia, the chance of other countries being pulled in, the risk of a miscalculation that spirals out of control. These are all terrifying possibilities. We can't just ignore them.
It feels like the stakes have never been higher.
They haven't. This isn't just about Ukraine's future. It's about global security, international order, and the basic principles of peace and democracy. So what does all this mean for the average person who's trying to make sense of this increasingly volatile situation?
That's a good question. It can feel overwhelming.
Absolutely. It's crucial to stay informed and engaged. You need to think critically about the information you're getting and understand that the situation is constantly changing. It's easy to feel helpless, but we can't afford to just tune it out.
You're right. Knowledge is power, especially now. The more you understand about what's going on, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions and advocate for positive change.
Yeah.
We can't just sit back and watch this unfold.
Exactly. This is a defining moment in history, and what we do or don't do will have lasting consequences. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious what's really stood out to you. What's the question that's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Honestly, for me, it's the uncertainty of it all. We've got all these massive things happening. Military powers, shifting geopolitics in flux, a new U.S. administration coming in with its own who knows what agenda. It feels like we're at a crossroads.
Definitely at a crossroads. One path leads to more escalation, maybe even a wider conflict. The other path leads to de-escalation and a negotiated settlement. But which way will it go? Nobody knows.
That's what keeps me up at night. And we've talked about all the risks. The chance of things spiraling out of control, the terrifying possibility of nuclear weapons being used. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, like there's nothing we can do as individuals.
I get that. It's a natural reaction. But I think it's important to remember that even with these huge global events that seem so far out of our control, we still have choices.
Yeah.
You can choose to stay informed. We can choose to have these conversations. We can choose to push back against misinformation and propaganda.
You're saying we shouldn't just give up and feel powerless.
Exactly. We can contact our elected officials. We can advocate for policies that support peace and diplomacy. We can support organizations that are providing humanitarian aid to the people affected by this conflict.
So it's about recognizing that even our small actions can make a difference.
Absolutely. Think of it like this. We're all part of a complex system, and our individual choices, they create ripples that spread outward. By choosing to educate ourselves, to speak out against injustice, to support those who are suffering, we contribute to a ripple effect that can push the system in a better direction.
That's a powerful thought. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with this. We've explored the complexities of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the potential fallout from these recent developments, and the uncertainty of what's to come. Now it's your turn to take what you've learned and apply it to your own understanding of the world.
Ask yourself, what are the most worrying things you see happening? What factors could change the course of this war? Think about the role of the international community, the potential impact of the new Trump administration, and the choices that everyday people can make to help create a more peaceful future.
Remember, knowledge is power, but only if we use it. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive session.